I'm Bet from BettesMakes, and today we're going to make a nested flower card. And we're going to make it entirely from scratch and then put the card together. It's actually quite easy, and you're going to absolutely love how this is going to turn out. So for a nested flower card, we're going to start by putting our card shape into place. So we're going to start with a shape. We will pick on a square. And I'm just going to move the square over here so that we can see it. We are going to unlock it down here. And of course, I can also unlock it here. So we're going to make this a 5x5 card that's going to look really nice. So we know that we need to have it 10 inches wide and 5 inches high. So I've got the width highlighted here. So I'm going to make that a 10. I'm going to use my tab key and I'm going to make it 5 deep. And I'm going to lock it back together. So when I click on the lock up here, you're going to see the lock down here also happens. So I'm going to change the color of this so it's a little easier to work with. I'll just make it a pale yellow for now. And then one other thing we need, of course, is a score line that goes down the center. So let's come over to shapes. Let's pick on a score line. And it's hiding behind here. Where did it go? See on the side here, I don't see it. It just disappeared. Okay, so shapes, score line. Okay, I'm just going to click away. There it is. That should come right on top. We know we need it as a height of 5 inches, so that's important. Now, the other thing we need to do is take these two, come up to a line and do it horizontally and do it vertically. And those two look really nice together. So I am going to group them. And then, of course, I am going to attach them. And that is going to be our card itself. So I can just move that off to the side. But the next piece we want to work on is making a flower. Now, I have a little trick on different things on how we can make a flower. So I'm going to start with a score line. Click on this score line, and that's just so we know what height we want to use for our flower. I'm just going to decide that's probably large enough, and I'm going to look at the size 1.375. Let's make it 1.5 so we know that we have a nice height for it. And I'm just going to move the score line over here. I'm not going to worry about it too much because we're going to start working with some shapes in order to make our flowers. Now we're going to make our flowers 6 petals. Let's bring in a square here. Now we want 6 petals, but we want to have them so that we have 4 across here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that should work. So I'm going to duplicate this. I don't like the black per se, but that's okay. We're going to take the 2 of these and we're going to duplicate them. Now let's bring those down here. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to take all of these and just make them easier on the eye color. Let's make them a pinkish color. Okay, I'm going to move this one up so that it's at 1 to 1. This is just so I can line things up. So let me click on it. Not quite at the 1. Eyeballing it doesn't always work. 1 to 1. It's in the right position. And I'm noticing that, you know, that 3.1111 doesn't always work that well. So let's make it a little easier. Let's make it 3. And that will be 3 by 3, just making sure it's still at the 1 and 1. Okay, so let's take this one and let's change it to 3 as well. Even numbers make it so much easier to work with. So we know that we want this one at 1 at the X, and we want at 4 on this one. And why? How did I come up with 4? The reason I came up with 4 is this is at the top at 1. The bottom of that square is at 4. So I want the top one here at 4. So now I'm going to have to go through this process of changing these all to 3. I could have done it ahead of time. I'm going to put this one in position, and this one's going to be at 4 for the X and 1 for the Y. So it's going to tuck in there. And this one, got to change that to 3 again. Perfect. Now we want this one at the X at 4 and the Y at 4. So now we have a nice little square set here. What I want to do is I just want to group those so they stay together. Now the point here is I'm going to make some shapes that are going to come around. So we're going to have 4 here. I may make 8 petals. I was thinking about 6, but I think 8 will be a lot easier and I can work within these squares. So first thing I want to do is I want to grab a circle. And I'm just going to bring it over here. I'm going to unlock it. Did it unlock? Yes, it did. And I want to make it kind of petal shaped here. Make it so it's a petal, so it comes across. It should be 4, 8 in width, 3, 6. So it's almost 6 here. Now what I want to do is make sure it's aligned top and bottom. So I'm going to highlight both of these. I'm going to align center horizontally and center vertically. That is perfect. It fits perfectly in there. I'm going to duplicate this and I am going to rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to highlight both of those together and I am going to group them so they stay together. And now I've got this little guy behind. I'm going to have to bring him to the front. There we go. So now I'm going to take the group and that one and we are going to arrange it. Sort of align it. Come on, align, center horizontally and center vertically. So now we have the start of our 4 petals, but we want to take these 2 items and we're going to group them and then make them go from side to side. So in order to do that, we know that we have them in the group. So I'm going to ungroup everything here. So let's ungroup and leave the group of the squares. You can see they're still grouped. I'm going to take this one, and I am going to group those. So now I have a couple of circles, these sort of circles grouped. I am going to duplicate them, and I am going to rotate them 45 degrees. Just hit the tab key. And now we have the basis for the extra little flower petals. Now it's not absolutely perfect for what we want. We're going to have this group. Let's click on the group and the group. And we want to have them centered against each other. So that looks pretty good when I take a look at it. They look like they're almost in the center together. And then of course we have this in behind. So now we have the basis of our flower. So I'm going to take the 2 groups together and I am going to weld them as one piece. Oh, I only took the 1 group. Okay, so let's weld this one as well. And now I can take the 2 weld pieces. I guess I didn't hit the shift. That's what it was. I'm going to click on weld. So now I have the basis of my flower. I know that it fits within this 6 by 6, and I know we want a lot of different things going on here. So there's a couple of things I can do here. I can add a flower piece to the center, or I could make it a little fatter here with a few different items, but I think I'm going to leave it as is, but I want to leave my squares there. I'm just going to pull this over here. I'm going to take my squares and just move them out of the way for now because I'm going to play with this one. I just use this for measuring. Now, flowers usually aren't black, so let's start with a dark color that looks really nice. Now we want to layer these flowers, so we want maybe 2 or 3 different ones on the inside. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click the offset. But I want to bring it down into the negative side, not quite that negative. I don't like the way the negative is showing. So let's go back to the outside. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. It's a little bit bigger, but not too bad. It's got 1.94. So let's make it 0.2 and tab that. and apply it. Now that's going to go black in the background, which is fine. I'm going to click on the background. I'm going to change its color, and maybe I make it the dark red, and the one in the middle I'm going to make a little bit brighter so we can see it. That looks really nice. Okay, the one on the inside, now I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to try 45. It didn't really go the way I expected it to, so let me just turn it so it fits in to the other pieces. That looks really nice right there. So now we have a nice little flower that has two pieces to it, but I'm not quite happy with it. So I'm going to take this front one. I'm going to change the color to the lightest red I have. I'm going to change the one in the back to the next one down. I'm going to highlight both of these together, and then I'm going to click on offset. And you'll see that it offsets the whole thing, which is really nice. It just makes it really nice so I can have another layer such as the calyx. So I'm just going to apply it. I'm going to make that calyx right here. Instead of black, I'm going to make it a nice dark green so that it sits on a nice green as we're going to do it. But now the thing is, I want one that's a little bit smaller for here. So let's take our first initial one, and let's offset that again. That's going to come up with the offset exactly how we see it here, a 0.2. I'm going to apply it. Now, the reason I want to use that offset is I don't want it to be that dark. I'm going to make the one here. I think I'm going to make this the nice light color. I'm going to take the one in behind if I can get to it here. I'm going to make it in the middle color, which is this one. And I am going to offset the top one here just a little bit. I'm going to move it so it actually fits in here. So this is a good way to use your offset, just a little bit. Make it centered or not centered. I can make it a little bit off. There we go. So we've got three nice little layers here. We've got three of the flower layers. We've got a green one in behind. Now, the only thing that's missing is maybe we want a centerpiece. So let's just bring in a nice little circle. It's pretty big. And I'm just going to have that cut out in a different color. And that's, I'm going to have to center everything here just to make sure everything follows. So it's a line horizontal, a line vertical. That looks a lot better. And I'm going to change the color of this little guy here. I'm going to make him yellow. So there we go. So now I just want to take this and group them all together. So what we're going to do when we go to cut this out, this will cut out in all different colors. It's just to give you an idea, because we can roll these in behind and really make them look spectacular, and it's going to fit on the card. Now you'll notice that that's probably not really going to fit on the card, and this is the size we wanted, 1.5. So if I take this now and it's width 6 by 6, I'm going to put 1.5. And you'll see how much smaller that is, and that's going to fit on our card. That's not bad. We could maybe make it one of these and say duplicate the whole thing and make a bigger one. We can make a 2-inch one. And then perhaps we can duplicate that and we can make some smaller ones as well. So maybe we make a couple of 1-inch ones. And I'll duplicate that again. So I got a couple of these. So these are flowers that are going to fit on our card. Let me just bring this card over here. I don't need my little score line here, so let's move it over. So how are we going to decorate? Well, we're going to push these on the outside of a card. So you know that you're going to flare them out just a little bit. And maybe make this one down here and a couple here, and have room to write a greeting in here. You can do it by hand, or you can do it by other means, such as having some writing. So let's do some text here and just put welcome. Oh, I had the caps lock on. Welcome. I don't necessarily like that font, so let's come up here and let's get a nice font that maybe looks more like handwriting. Now, this is an interesting one. This is DTC Bikini Babe. That's a nice looking font, so I can put this in here. I can cut it and put it into place, or I can click over here, and instead of basic cut, I can come up to pen. And to me, it looks like I need to weld that whole thing together so it becomes one piece. I don't like to see little extra cut lines if I don't need to. And this welcome piece right now is looking for a black pen. Maybe we can make that in raspberry. And then, I want to move the welcome. I'm going to move this into place like this, and I'm going to attach that part of the card together, and I can move it out of the way. Let's take a look at this. We don't need to see it right now, so I'm just going to hide it. And all the rest are basic cuts. Now, if we take a look at the basic cuts behind some of these, like the green pieces, they will have some holes in the back, and you can tell that by looking at the basic cuts here. So let's take a look at this one. Let's ungroup it. I'm just going to pull the pieces apart because right now it doesn't matter. If you take a look at what's behind, you end up with something that's going to be cut that you don't necessarily need it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy. I am going to duplicate it. I'm going to put it over top of the holes just as it was before. And I'm going to put those together, and I am going to weld them. And now I don't have to worry about that basic cut back. Now, we did change this to a 2 and a 1, so we're going to have to take each of these apart anyway, so it doesn't really make any difference. So I can just pull the pieces off. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to just duplicate the red piece. I'm just going to pull it off. I'm going to highlight these two pieces, and I'm going to weld them together. And that's just so we don't have any extra cuts that we need to worry about. Okay, so let's ungroup this one, and we'll take off the first couple of pieces here. I want to duplicate this part. So do a duplicate, pull it off, highlight these two, and weld them together. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the last one. I'm going to ungroup it. It probably would have been easier to do it before I duplicated them, but I did not. So let's take the red piece, duplicate it, move it over to the side, take these two pieces, these two pieces, and weld them together. I'm going to leave them as all different parts and pieces of this. So it looks like we are ready to go with this. So I'm going to save it. And this is going to be called a layered flower card. Now I'm doing this in October, but I'm going to put it in my cards folder so it's all part of the cards that I make. I'm going to click on save. Now I'm going to click on my little check mark over here so that that goes away. And it looks like I'm going to have to turn on my Cricut machine just so that I can use it. So I'm just going to cut all of this stuff out on different pieces of cardstock. I've got little scraps, so it doesn't matter what color I'm going to use. So let's take a look at Make It. And it's going to be on the mat and done. It's going to separate it out into different mats. Now I could push all of these on the same mat if I wanted to. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different mats. Oh, we have that extra little score line. I couldn't find it, and it doesn't look like everything that I wanted for that. And then we have this last one. So this last one we don't need. So I'm going to click on the cancel. I want to show you an easier way than moving stuff around, because we're going to have different parts and pieces. So I need to find my score line. There it is, the line score that was showing up. I'm just going to hide it for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these pieces and I am going to change the color to one color. So everything goes on the same mat. That makes it a lot easier. So let's go back and save it again. So let's just click on save there and click on make it. I'm going to go for the mat. Now you can see all the different pieces. So we actually need to have all the green pieces green, and we need one of each a different color. So I'm going to start lining stuff up. It looks like we've got one of this and one of this. Now I have a bigger one here. See which one is bigger. That one looks pretty good. So I've done some duplication of it. So let's see if we can figure all of this out. So we have two smaller ones that we were making and one medium. So the first pieces we need are the bigger ones are going to fit here, and I think this one is bigger than that one. Some of the differences are very subtle. That looks good. And I think this one is a star piece. Oh, here's one up here. That's what I was looking for. These two fit together. And that one looks like it fits here. You can see it can be a little confusing as to exactly what you're looking for here. I'm actually missing some things here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the dots can be a different color altogether. Actually, what I'm going to do to make our lives easier, I am just going to put all the green pieces together. You know, those ones are green. And then we're going to pick on this shape. It looks like the same. 2, 3, 4. There's 4 of those. Those are all going to be the same color. It might have been easier to move them. Okay, so let's move this over. We've got a couple like this, and this, and this. Those are all the same shape. We have some like this, more pointy. These are all another color, and these are all a different color altogether. Doesn't really matter as long as we have all the pieces and parts. And then we've got all our little dots here, and I will put those down at the bottom so that we can cut out a bunch of little dots. Now, basically what I've done on this mat is given myself the ability to use just little pieces of paper. I don't need to use huge pieces of paper. I can go as just over 2 inches here for one of my items. And I'm not using anything that's that wide, because look, I can also turn these and move them if I wanted to. Just bring them closer together. You really don't want to waste anything, but if you can use 2-inch strips of paper or less, look at this one, I can fit 2 into here. Same with this one. I wanted the 2-inch strip. Just use a 2-inch strip here. Maybe fit them like this. Cut out. I'm just going to do it this way. I think I'll just line them up on the line, and then I know what I've got. And then the dots down at the bottom. So basically all I have to do here is when I'm lining stuff up, I'm only going to use small pieces of paper. This is going to be 2 by 7 or 2 by 6, 2 by 5, 1 by 3. This one will be 2 by 7, as I mentioned before, and this one will be 2.5 by 7. So there's just various pieces that I can use here. And then of course the card itself is just over 5 inches, and that type of card. All of this can also be done on the Cricut Joy. So just to let you know. Now, the biggest thing now is I need to put those strips of paper together, and I'm going to use some of my scraps when I do some of my paper. So I have a lot of little scraps that I can use, and I also have some larger pieces of paper that I can use as well. I don't really need gray per se, but I can use a couple of purple colors that I have. I have a scrap of orange in my bucket as well, so I can use that as well. Just looking to see what colors I have. I have a green one here that I haven't used for anything else. So I've got green for the backing. I've got a couple of purples here. I can use another color inside of all of that. And I have an orange sheet here that I can use as well. So I've got all kinds of colors. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4 different colors. I have 4 different colors all picked out here. And then I can choose the color for my card itself, and I'm just going to use a plain gray for my card. And the reason I'm going to use a plain gray is just so that my flowers are going to be able to stand out. And of course, the last little piece I need is a piece of yellow for my little dots, and I have lots of scraps of yellow. Don't need anything very big, so I'm just taking things out of my scrap bin here. And we're now ready to start cutting. So let's go on and continue. Everything should hook up. I'm going to use a medium cardstock, and all we're doing is cutting. So it's going to be pretty easy. And a medium cardstock is going to ask me to start working on stuff on the other side. So I am going to stop my share here. And we're going to go over to our demo desk camera. And these are all the pieces of paper that I had chosen to use. My green happens to have something glued on it, so I'm just going to cut that off with the scissors. I have a couple of purples here, an orange, a yellow, and a gray for everything that we're going to make. So I know that I have to put these on one mat. So I'm just going to grab one of my mats here, just pull off the surface. This one doesn't have that much of a stick, so I'm going to change mats here. I'm going to pull one of these mats off. That looks pretty good. It's an older mat that I've been using. Now I'm going to start cutting the pieces to fit into here. Now I can cut them by hand, I can cut them with a machine, but we want the green one, and we know we wanted it about 2 or 3 inches deep. So I'm just going to cut off some of these top pieces that I don't need. Just using my scissors here just to cut things off. Just going to cut a general piece of paper here, and then I'm going to measure it out. I know I don't need all of this, but that is my scrap bin. So let me just move that out of the way. And I'm going to bring out my cutter. Just move my mat out of the way for a second. Now I do have a Cricut cutter here. And I know I wanted it just over 2 inches on this one. So I'm just going to measure it. So I want 2 inches, and I've got 4.5 here. So 3.5. Let's see, 1, 2. Let's see, 1, 2. I'm going to make it 3 inches. And I know I needed it by 7, and it looks like I've got like 8 inches of material here. So I'm okay for this first one. I'm just going to lay it down. Now the next group is a larger color. So I'm going to use a darker color for that. And I've got a huge piece of paper here. And we know we only want it 2 inches deep, which is fine. I'm just going to cut a strip 2 inches, and this is 2 inches at the top here. So this is going to be a little easier. So I know my next strip is going to be that, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to lay these down. I put that one in my scrap bin. The next one I also needed 2 inches. Just fine, and just move it over here about 2 inches. Just cut off a piece. I'm just going to use this in strip 1, 2, 3, and the same one with an orange. I'm going to use this orange one. I want about 2 inches for that one as well. We are getting the strips that we want. And then, of course, the last one's just the dots. I only needed about 1 inch by 1 inch at the bottom. So let me just make this just over 1 inch. And I'm just going to leave the small piece that we have here, and I'm going to use that. And I'm not going to worry about the gray piece because that's our card itself. So that's my little cutter. It makes it really fast and easy for measurement. Now, let's put everything together on the mat. So we had the green piece first, and this, so look at the sticky part. I'm going to change this around a bit so we're not working in metric, we're working more in inches. So we know it can come down as far as 3 inches here, and we only needed 7, so we're good to go. The next color, and I'm just going to back up a little bit on mine so I can see exactly where it's going to go. It's going to go between the 3 and the 5 inch mark. So this next piece is going to fit right in here. So between the 3 and the 5, as I can see on my paper. The next one goes between the 6 and the 8. I left a gap in there. That's fine. That's between 6 and 8. And I'm always looking at the Design Space screen. The next one is between 8 and 10. Between the 8 and the 10. That looks really good. And then my yellow piece is at the very bottom between 11 and 12. And you have to make sure that you've got them in the right position, because these are just scraps, except a couple of them I did cut a full sheet. And what I'm doing right now is I'm using a brayer tool in order to have things in place so that they stick to the mat thoroughly before we do a cut with them. Now it looks like we have everything ready to go. I'm just going to go over to Design Space, make sure we've got the right paper picked. Now this is a medium cardstock that I'm using, and I just use a paper pad from Michaels. It is not solid core, so I just have to let you know, without being solid core, you might get some white edges showing. So let's just load this in. I just want to make sure I have enough room at the back for my mat. So I might just pull this forward a little bit, and we're going to load it in. And we're ready to go with that. And it will just check for the blade that it's using, just to make sure you're using the right one. And when that brings that in and starts cutting, I'm going to go for another mat here to put my gray piece on. I see I have a bit of debris. I'm going to place this here while this is cutting. Make sure I don't interfere with the cut. I work in a very small space here, so I'm just going to use my brayer tool over on the side to make sure everything stays in place. Okay, so we're ready with this one. Then the other thing I have to do is I have to pick a pen color to write on our card, and that's the one that says welcome. I do have this set of pens. They're just by Cricut. It comes in a 30 gel pen set. So then I have to decide what color is going to look nice with all these different colors of flowers and things that we're putting there. I want something that's going to be very vibrant and show right up. So I'm going to do a couple little test things here. Grab the yellow one, if I can get it out of here. These are gels. So you can see this one is called Sunflower. So I'm just going to go in the little corner here. And all I'm doing is I'm just writing a little bit here just to make sure it'll show up on the card. And it seems to be a good one. So that is the one I'm going to use for our project. Just put my pens aside here, and then I can put it back when I'm done with it. Looks like we're almost done with our cut. So we have our pen ready. We have our next mat ready. And with a Maker 3, it's going to ask me what material I'm going to use for my second mat. Really important to know that. Let me just eject this one and put it off to the side. And the reason it asks you is so many people were making mistakes and not changing the material type for the second mat. So it's going to ask me again, and of course I'm using the same one. It wants a scoring wheel and our pen. So I'm going to have to take out my fine tip blade, and I have a scoring wheel that I am going to be using. Now I know on the Joy you can't use a scoring wheel, but perhaps you can just use a pen and just draw a line where you need to make the fold. If you're using an Explore, you're going to have a scoring stylus, and that goes with my Explore machine. So you do have other options. The Joy, just writing down a line where the score line needs to be, really makes a difference, and you can make multiple things based on that. So let's get the mat loaded here. In the meantime, I'm going to flip over my mat, and I'm going to pull off my strips of paper that I had been using. And get them all off the mat. Okay, so while I'm working on that, it is looking for, I'm going to take my pen out. I'm going to put it back in its place. Take out my scoring wheel and put in my fine tip blade. You're going to find that the word multitasking is really going to apply to yourself as you're working on some crafts. So I just want to make sure my pen is in place, and I can put this out of the way. And we will also taking this off the mat at the same time. And it looks like we are pretty well ready to go here. I'm going to pull this off, put it underneath for now. And then in Design Space, it's going to have me click on the finish, and that's exactly what I've done. And now we're going to start assembling things. I'm going to just turn my machine off and slide it towards the back so that you can see what I'm working on here. I'm going to pull this one off the mat as well. Say if I roll the mat off, it makes it a lot easier to work with. And I'm just going to take my cover here, put it over top, make sure that I preserve it. And I have some different pieces of paper going on here. So we want to get all of our flower pieces going off and our little centers at the same time. I am rolling the mat off of them the best I can. The little pieces are a little tougher. You want to roll the mat so you keep your pieces very straight. You don't want to have big bent pieces, although with flowers it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. So let me just pull this one off and this one off and this one off. Looks like I have everything, and I will just put my mat off to the side. Like anyone else, I can't find my protective cover right now, but I'll get to that in a moment. So let's just make sure we have everything pulled off. This one I've got all four. I've got all four from this one. And I'm just going to put these back in my scrap bin because I'll be able to use them again. Okay, so we have all the pieces we want to assemble. We also have our card that says welcome. A couple of things we can do here, of course, in the center is make a nice crisp fold. We have the word welcome. We could color it in to make it a little more visible, but we won't do that right now. What we want to do now is start assembling our flowers. Now, this is the back of the flower. So this back of the flower is the part that's going to be actually glued onto the card, but we have to build them up. So let's get all four pieces out here so we can start to build, make sure we've got all the right pieces in the right spot. See which one is bigger of these two. They're pretty similar, so I'm not too sure. Just take it from here. One on here. This one's going to be a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And these two are going to be a little bit bigger. Fine with that because we just want the green in the background anyway. And then we have purple pieces. Purple piece seems to fit right there. This one in here. Gradually build this up. These all look the same size to me, so maybe I've got this backwards. This one goes like this, and this one goes like this, and these ones seem to go on top, so they're a little bit different. Now I have my 4 dots that are going to go on top. Of course, the big one goes here, next size here, and these 2 here. So now we are ready to start making our flowers. So let's start with this first one. I'm just going to flip these upside down so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm using a tacky glue, but what I want to do is just simply make a dot in the center, because I want to be able to move it around so it kind of matches part of what we're doing here. So by having it in the center, I can just push it down, and then I can push it around as much as I want. We don't need to have it exact. I know some of you like to be perfectionists. Okay, same thing with the next one, a little dot in the center. And then what we're going to do, this one goes off center a little bit. That looks really good. Next, another dot. Oops, big dot. Okay, for this one, I'm going to put it this way. Looks good. And then, of course, our dot in the center. Then we're just going to set that aside and let it dry. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to do with this. So that's our first layered one. Let's take this one, flip it over. Now I know some of these sizes don't seem to match, so it might have been something I did in Design Space. So we're just going to have a little green showing through here. That looks really good. And this one I want to put so it is slightly off center. You also want to do the same thing with the orange piece here. Move it off center a little bit. And then, of course, our dot. Okay, set that aside to dry. Do the same thing with these. Okay, just turn this over. Just want the green to slightly show through. There we go. Now remember, yours might not be exactly the same as mine. Oh. Dot part there. Right. See where this one will go, like this. Or if you can't see a lot of the green in behind, because what we're going to do is we're going to make these really spectacular. Yellow dot goes in the middle. There we go. And our last one here. A little bit of green show. Just a little bit more here. Oh, get the dot out of the way here. And just a couple more little pieces here. This is looking excellent. And our last little dot here. Still moving around. It's not quite dry. Take a second or two to dry. Let's go back to our first one. It's looking pretty dry. So let's take our card next and decide exactly where we want these flowers to go. So we had decided something like this for our flowers. That's exactly how they will go on the card, and they're going to look really gorgeous. So the big deal here is you want to make sure that the green part is really adhered to the card, because we're going to do some bending. And that won't happen until after this is dried on the card. So there's the first one. Let's take a look at the next piece here. Don't want it on the purple part, just the green part. Okay, so now we have two more green pieces that we're going to put in here. This one goes here. This one goes here. Basically all the gluing we are going to do right now. And of course you could write a greeting on the inside. I'm just going to put the cap on here. Now my other thing is you might want to add some color to this. Now we use that gold color. Remember, these are gel pens that we were using. Let me just grab the same one that I had before. I could add some other color to it. Let me just move that out of the way. I have to wait for these things to dry anyway. So you can fill it in. I might just make the W a brighter color just so that you can see it. Don't have to be really detailed with it. You could use a flat pen. You can paint on this material. And I guess, you know, staying within the lines is something I like to do, but it's not necessary by any means. This could be a great little project for kids to put these flowers on the cards, or you can get really creative on your own. These are gel pens, so they will look good once it's dried. And we have one little finishing touch to do after I finish coloring this piece in. As you can see, just adding some extra color is going to make a huge difference. Now I could use a wider tip pen if I want to, but that just gives you the idea. Now, we've got these things glued on. We want them to stand out. So I'm going to hold them in the center, and then I'm going to start to pull up the petals. I'll start with the first round. I am holding it in the middle just so that we can get them to go the way I want them to go. These are special cards, so we are not gluing anything else into place, but we can pull them up. And if you wanted to, you could actually curl them backwards as well. So let's just pull them up and curl them backwards just to give you an idea of what you can do with these. Still pretty damp, so just giving it some texture. And you don't need fancy tools in order to use this texture. You just want to roll it a little bit. I'm just rolling it with my fingers. Scraping them underneath the fingers. So we do have the option of getting to all these different layers except the green layer. And I can pull this right up. So as you can see, we are making our card pretty spectacular by adding a little texture and 3D appearance to what we have. I'll just get my hands in there. Just know that you don't have to be perfect with it. Now, I could use a little dowel or a pen to make the curl a little better on that. I don't know if I have anything handy that I could use, a small dowel or something, in order to make the curl a little better. I do have a pen, but let's see what's in my toolbox here, if I have something small enough. Well, I could use the edge of a weeding tool here, so let's just try it. Always experimenting with different things that you can do. There you go. I got a nice curl with that one. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So you just want to get a nice 3D effect going here. And I'm just using this on the back layer. And that tends to pull things up the way you want them to. So they're looking really nice and really good. Wow, this is turning out spectacular. I just love the effect. Get a couple of these ones that I didn't do. And everybody is going to absolutely love what you do here. And do the same thing on the purple here. And we can work our way through each of the flowers and do something really nice this way. See, I'm getting a nice little curl look here. Once you do the curling with it, it really makes a big difference, but I like it to dry in place first so that I can see what's going on with it. Okay, let me just get a little more curl going on this one. So it's pointing the other way. There we go. Now we're talking. Nice little, and then I'm just going to pull these up just a little bit. You don't need much on these ones at all, but you could curl them. I think they're going to be too tough to curl. But it gives you the idea where you're getting a nice 3D effect. If you take a look at it this way, you can see the 3D effect. It just looks really spectacular. So I'm going to continue on and I'm going to curl up a lot of these and then we'll take a screenshot of exactly what you're going to do. So I hope you had a lot of fun with this. And this is how you make a layered flower with a 3D effect. And until next time, happy crafting.